This knowledge, which scientists were able to obtain only within the 19th century, was informed by the Quran 1400 years ago. The following is stated in verse 30 of the chapter of Al-Anbiya. Do not the unbelievers see that the heavens and the earth were joined together as one unit of creation? Before we clove them asunder, we made from water every living thing. Will they not then believe? The Quran mentions more than 1400 years ago that the universe was expanding. The following is stated in verse 47 of the chapter of Az-Zariyat. With the power and skill did we construct the firmament, for it is we who create the vastness of space. When the sky is rent asunder and becomes a crimson rose like melted oil. While we can understand the notion of renting asunder of the sky as going to space by passing over the atmosphere, we can also understand that as renting asunder the sky by eyes via telescopes and watching beyond. As a result of space researchers of nowadays, scientists have come across with a nebula which is in the color of a crimson rose, looking like melted oil, just as it is described in the verse. Yes, this nebula was named as Rosette Nebula, mentioned as the star of Tariq in the Quran, and sworn by. Yes, this star, which is called Tariq, sounds just like the sound of the door being knocked by someone. The most interesting side of this is that the word of Tariq in Arabic language means the knocker on the door. There is even a chapter named Al-Hadid, which means iron. The following is stated in verse 25 of the chapter of Al-Hadid. And we also sent down iron, in which there lies great force, and which has many uses for mankind. The word anzalna, used for the formation of iron in the verse, means we sent down. However, what we know is that the iron is dug out from the underground. In our opinion, we dug out should have been preferred instead of we sent down. However, the situation is not what we think. With the expression we sent down in the verse, a very important scientific miracle is pointed out. And the sun runs his course for a period determined for him. That is the decree of him, the exalted in might, the all-knowing. It is not permitted to the sun to catch up the moon, nor can the night outstrip the day. Each just swims along in its own orbit, according to law. It is He who created the night and the day, and the sun and the moon. All the celestial bodies swim along each in its rounded course. As we can see it, the Quran stated 1400 years ago that the sun and the stars moved. This proves that the Quran is the word of Allah. He created the heavens and the earth in true proportions. He wraps the night up in the day and wraps the day up in the night. The Arabic word which is translated as to wrap in the verse is kewara. This word comes from the same root as the word kura, sphere, which also exists in the Turkish language. In Arabic, this verb is commonly used in order to express the action of wrapping turban around the head, as well as wrapping an object around an aspheric thing. This verb, which is used for wrapping a turban around an aspheric thing, like the head, is also used in order to express wrapping the night up in the day. And after that he spread the earth. In this verse, the word which is translated as spread is deha. Words derived from that root are also used for an ostrich to make a nest, to clean stones from the place where it is about to lie down, for the place where it lays its eggs and the egg itself. Indeed, the shape of the earth is rounded in a way that resembles an egg. The flattened spherical shape of the earth is described as geoid. In this regard, the use of the word deha in the verse contains important information about the earth given by Allah. See they not that we gradually reduce the land in their control from its outlying borders. See they not that we gradually reduce the land in their control from its outlying borders. These two verses of the Quran mention that the surface of earth has been reduced and diminished from its outlying borders. Has the surface of earth been reducing from its outlying borders, really? According to the information of NASA, while the Earth's equatorial radius is 6,378.5 kilometers, its polar radius is 6,357. This means a difference of 0.3%. I swear by the firmament which returns. The following is stated in the 11th verse of the Surah of At-Tariq. I swear by the firmament which returns. In this verse, Allah Almighty swears by the sky and draws attention to its function, sending back and returning. What does the returning function of the sky mean? If you wish, let us learn what this expression means from scientists. As is known, the atmosphere surrounding the Earth consists of many layers. Each layer has many important duties for the benefit of living beings on Earth. When the atmosphere is analyzed, it has been discovered that each layer has the function of sending the materials or rays they are exposed to back into space or back down to the Earth. And we have made the heavens as a canopy well guarded. Yet do they turn away from the signs which these things point to. In the verse above, the Quran states that the whole sky is a well-guarded canopy. Millions of meteors, some small and some big, fall on the Earth from space every day. Despite its transparent structure, our atmosphere encounters this meteor bombardment like a steel barrier. The atmosphere also filters the harmful rays coming from the sun. The average temperature in space is approximately -270 degrees. Our world is protected from this freezing cold of space thanks to the atmosphere. Along with the atmosphere, there is also a layer called Van Allen belts, originating from the magnetic fields of the world and serving as a protective shield. Verse 22 of the chapter of Al-Hijr of the Quran gives us the following news 1400 years ago, when the importance and meaning of fecundating was not known. And we send the fecundating winds. Yes, this verse clearly states that winds have a fecundating property. What do scientists say about this news given by the Quran? Let us find out. Scientists state that winds have a fecundating property as follows. There are male and female elements in the flowers of all plants. Fruits occur when the male element fecundates the female. This fecundation takes place thanks to wind. He has let free the two bodies of flowing water, meeting together. Between them is a barrier which they do not transgress. The expression of the verse has a mind-blowing style. For the verse informs us that the seas do not mingle with one another, despite all storms and huge waves. Yes, science confirms the verses of the Quran as it always has been, and proves that it is the word of Allah. The Quran gives the information that underground waters form as a result of the penetration of rainwater into the earth ages ago, in a time when there were no science or techniques. Seest thou not that Allah sends down rain from the sky and leads it through springs in the earth? The information of the Quran about the formation of the underground waters as a result of the penetration of rainwater into the earth, clearly stated 14 centuries ago, was put forth in Europe in the 16th century, and only at that time they were able to oppose Aristotle. He makes you in the wombs of your mothers in stages, one after another, in 3 veils of darkness. Such is Allah, your Lord and Cherisher. To Him belongs all dominion. There is no God but He. Then how are ye turned away from your true center? The Quran points out to the 3 dark stages of the baby in the womb with this verse, and states that man is created in the womb with a 3-phased creation. The Arabic expression fi zulumatin silasin, which is translated into English as in 3 veils of darkness, indicates the 3 dark phases of the embryo during its development. The following is stated in the 14th verse of the chapter of Al-Mu'minun. Then we made the sperm into a clot of congealed blood. Then of that clot we made a foetus lump. With this verse, the Quran points to some stages of man in the mother's womb. The first stage mentioned in the verse is the stage in which the drop, that is, the nutfa, turns into clinging clot, that is, the alaka. The second stage is the stage in which the clinging clot, that is, the alaka, turns into a lump of chewed meat. He who has sent down water from the sky, with it have we produced divers pairs of plants, each separate from the others. Fruit of every kind he made in pairs, 2 and 2. These verses of the Quran state that plants are created in pairs and indicates a great truth which was discovered only in the 20th century. Glory to Allah, who created in pairs all things that the earth produces, as well as their own humankind and other things of which they have no knowledge. The expression of the verse, other things of which they have no knowledge, has a wider meaning. Creation in pairs is also valid for the smallest particles of atoms. A proton has its pair, antiproton. An electron is coupled with a positron, and a neutron possesses an antineutron, known as parity. And thanks to this discovery, it has been presented that the matter has a pair called antimatter. Antimatter bears the opposite characteristics of matter. For example, contrary to matter, antimatter electrons are positive and protons are negative. It is He who sendeth the winds like heralds of glad tidings going before His mercy. When they have carried the heavy laden clouds, we drive them to a land that is dead. Make rain to descend thereon, and produce every kind of harvest therewith. It is He who doth show you the lightning by way both of fear and of hope. It is he who doth raise up the clouds, heavy with fertilizing rain. As you see, the Quran stated 1400 years ago that clouds were not light at all, and described them as heavy clouds. Cumulonimbus cloud, known as the thunder cloud, can contain up to 300 tons of water. Yes, you did not misread it. We are mentioning clouds as heavy as 300 tons. Thou seest the mountains, and thinkest them firmly fixed, but they shall pass away as the clouds pass away. With this verse, the Quran informs us that mountains are not motionless as they seem, but are in constant motion. What does the movement of mountains, like clouds, mean? What do scientists say about this fact informed by the Quran 1400 years ago? Now, let us see what science says about it. For the first time in history, a German scientist called Alfred Wegener proposed that the continents of the Earth had been attached together when it first formed, but then drifted in different directions, and thus separated as they moved away from each other. We have set on the earth mountains, standing firm, lest it should shake with them. If we pay close attention to the verse, we will see that mountains' property of preventing shocks on earth is mentioned. This fact, which was unknown by anyone during the period when the Quran was revealed, has been exposed as a result of the discoveries of modern geology today. Mountains play a similar role to a nail or peg firmly holding down a tent. For example, Mount Everest, the summit of which stands approximately 9 kilometers above the surface of the earth, has a root deeper than 125 kilometers. Thou wouldst have deemed them awake, whilst they were asleep, and we turned them on their right and their left sides. The wisdom of turning on the right and left sides was only discovered in recent times. People who remain lying down in the same position for a long period of time encounter serious health problems, such as circulation difficulty, sores, and blood clotting in the part of the body in contact with the surface on which they lie. Then we struck upon their ears, causing them to go in deep sleep for a great number of years in the cave. A very important scientific fact has been referred to in this verse of the Quran. Here the preference of the expression, "we struck upon their ears," instead of "we've made them sleep," indicates a very interesting scientific fact. According to the discoveries of scientists, the only organ of sense which is active during sleep is the ear. That is why we need the alarm of the clock for waking up. Other organs of sense are not active during sleep. Thus, the wisdom of using the expression, "we struck upon their ears," by Almighty Allah for the people of the cave, is an indication of closing the senses of hearing of these youngsters, and thus their staying asleep for many years. In verse 41 of the chapter of Al-Ankabut, the following is stated: "The parable of those who take protectors other than Allah is that of the spider who builds to itself a house. But truly the flimsiest of houses is the spider's house, if they but knew." There are two important points in this verse. The first one is as follows. The word of Ankabut in the verse is referred to the female spider. The word of itahazit is the feminine conjugation of the verb that means build for itself. The masculine conjugation of this verb is itahaz. Allah Almighty states that the house of the spider is made by the female spider by using the feminine. Thy Lord taught the bee to build its cells in hills, on trees, and in men's habitations. Then to eat of all the produce of the earth, and find with skill the spacious paths of its Lord. There issues from within their bodies a drink of varying colors, wherein is healing for men. Verily, in this is a sign for those who give thought. In Arabic, the bee is written as nal, in the same way both for male and female. This word has no feminine form. However, the Quran uses the feminine form of the verb when it gives information about the inspiration which is given to the bee and what the bee does.
We shall send those who reject our revelations to the hellfire. When their skins have been burned away, we shall replace them with new ones so that they may continue to feel the pain. God is Almighty, All-Wise. God tells the people who reject His message that when they are in hell and their skins are burnt off so they can't feel any pain, He will give them new skins so that they continue to feel the pain. The Quran makes it clear that pain is dependent upon the skin. The discovery of pain receptors in the skin is a fairly recent discovery for biology. We made every living thing from water. Will they not believe? In this verse, water is pointed out as the origin of all life. All living things are made of cells. We now know that cells are mostly made up of water. For example, 80% of the cytoplasm, basic cell material, of a standard animal cell is described as water in biology textbooks. The fact that living things consist mostly of water was discovered only after the invention of the microscope. In the deserts of Arabia, the last thing someone would have guessed is that all life came from water. Darkness out in a deep ocean, which is covered by waves, above which are waves, above which are clouds, layers of darkness, one upon the other. When one puts out his hand therein, he can hardly see it. Those God gives no light to, they have no light. It is commonly thought that waves only occur on the surface of the ocean. However, oceanographers have discovered that there are internal waves that take place below the surface of the ocean. These waves are invisible to the human eye and can only be detected by specialist equipment. The Quran mentions darkness in a deep ocean above which are waves, then clouds above that. This description is not only remarkable because it describes the internal waves in the ocean, but also because it describes darkness deep in the ocean. The Quran to warn him, "No, indeed, if he does not stop, we will seize him by the forehead, his lying, sinful forehead." God does not call this person a liar, but calls his forehead, the front part of the brain, lying and sinful, and warns him to stop. This verse is significant for two reasons. The first is that the front part of our brain is responsible for voluntary movement. This is known as the frontal lobe. A book titled Essentials of Anatomy and Physiology, which includes the results of research on the functions of this area, states, "The motivation and the foresight to plan and initiate movements occur in the anterior portion of the frontal lobes, the prefrontal area. The part of the brain that is responsible for movement is said to be seized if the man does not stop." Secondly, numerous studies have shown that this same region, frontal lobe, is responsible for the lying function of the brain.
Muhammad could not have known these facts about human development in the 7th century because most of them were not discovered until the 20th century. This is a leech, and this is the human embryo, about 23 days. I think you have to agree that the similarity between these structures is amazing.
The key word in both is al-Ghaib. At this stage is known to no one except Allah. The rapid growth and dramatic changes which occur after the bones have been clothed by muscles have been mentioned in the Holy Quran 1400 years ago.
I Surah 79, Ayah 32 states, also in the context of creation, and the mountains hath he firmly fixed. Similar mention of mountains is found in several other surahs. It is permissible to interpret this to imply that mountains are rooted and that modern geophysics has established deep crustal roots for the axial parts of mountain systems at converging plate boundaries. We need research into the history of early Middle Eastern oral traditions to know whether, in fact, such historical events have been reported. If there is no such record, it strengthens the belief that God transmitted through Muhammad bits of his knowledge that we have only discovered for ourselves in recent times.
The human being must have had an originator. The lamp is made up of 4 components, whereas the human being is made up of 3 billion components in each and every one of his cells. The human code is spelled out in 3 billion DNA letters, known as the human genome. And these letters reside within the nucleus of each of our molecules. So, if you look at the 4 components of the lamp and deduce that it must have had a maker, and you do not realize that you too must have had a maker, then the problem is in your way of thinking. Allah says, what means, were they created out of nothing, or are they their own creators? Chapter 52, verse 35.
Most of the religions that came before Islam prophesied about coming of the last and final messenger, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I've given a talk on Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in the various world religious scriptures. Besides Christianity, you also find in Judaism about Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. It's mentioned in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter number 18, verse number 18 about the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. It's mentioned in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter number 18, verse number 19. In the book of Isaiah, chapter number 29, verse number 12. In the Song of Solomon, chapter number 5, verse number 16. That's the Old Testament. In the New Testament, Christianity is mentioned in the Gospel of John, chapter number 14, verse number 16. Gospel of John, chapter 15, verse 26. Gospel of John, chapter 16, verse number 7. Gospel of John, chapter number 16, verse number 12 to 14. In Bhavishya Purana, Parva 3, Khanda 3, Adhyay 3, Shlokas 5 to 8, which speaks about Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. It's mentioned Bhavishya Purana, Parva 3, Khanda 3, Adhyay 3, Shlokas 10 to 27, talking about Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam as the Malik.
So I said to the mother, why do you fast in Ramadan? Why? What is the point? And she said to me, I fast in Ramadan to remember the poor. Allahu Akbar. This mother who had nothing in dunya, nothing, will never have perhaps anything in life. She was humbling her heart for other people who had less. What is this? This woman who knew only tribulations was emptying her stomach to thank God. For an empty stomach, what is this? And I thought at that moment, Sheikh, if this is Islam, I want to be Muslim. نور الهداية زار صدري هو مبتدأ أنسي.
Het is officieel. Nou ja, als je gelooft dat er één God is en je gelooft dat Mohammed één van de profeten is, dus naast Jezus, Mozes, etc., dan ben je formeel een moslim.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمد رسول الله.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mariam Sharif. I am from Ireland and a physical therapist by profession. Alhamdulillah, I got a chance to accept Islam. But my question is, my father never got the chance, and shirk is the biggest sin. And I want to know if there is a specific dua or something I can read on his name so that his sin will be forgiven.
Repeat after me. I swear there is no God to worship except my one God, Allah. Say Allah. He has no partners.
I am a revert, and I was just asking questions on behalf of my non-Muslim family and friends, and I just wanted to say, Subhanallah and La ilaha illallah.
I swear there is no God to worship except Allah.
There is no God to worship except Allah.
And I swear
that
Muhammad is his prophet.
Very next verse on the next page. For those of you who ask for signs, have we not shown you enough already? Look around you. Look at the stars. Look at the sun. Look at water. These are the signs for the people of knowledge. SubhanAllah.
Allah has shown the people from the time of Adam until right now, has shown the people what He wants from them. And it's a very simple thing, and that is that worship be for Him alone without any partners. In fact, we know this life to be a test from Almighty God. That's why we're born, and that's why we die, because there has to be a beginning and an end for us to be tested on. The next life, after this life, no one will ever die again. A bad person or a good person. Both are brought back, and they continue to live in the next life, either in good shape or not so good shape, depending on how they did on the test. The worship of the God of Abraham, that was what was taught by these prophets.